clerk please call the roll?
Good morning, everyone. Calling the roll for the Monday, April 1st, 2019 Board of Control meeting. It is now 11:02 a.m. Nan Baker, Dale Miller, Joe Nani serving as an alternate for Dan Brady, Mike Dever, Maggie Keenan serving as an alternate for Armin Budish, Angie Rich serving as an alternate for Dennis Kennedy, Lenora Lockett. We have a quorum.
Okay. I'm reviewing the minutes from the March 25th, 2019 minutes. I make a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Is there any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Are there any tabled items?
And no tabled items.
Okay.
The first new item, BC 2019-254. It's a two-part item. Department of Public Works. A, submitting an Rfp exemption on requisition 44538, which will result in an award recommendation to Rush Truck Centers of Ohio, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $138,929 for the purchase of one 2019 International 4x2 truck with dump body.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Department of Public Works. This first item requesting an exemption purchase through the ODOT co-op contract. It's for a not to exceed dollar amount for a dump truck. I do understand there were some questions ahead of time, but a bunch of us were out sick on Friday and trying to get our gears together. So I'll try to answer all those questions this morning, and if you have any further, just let me know. It's an exemption purchase through the ODOT contract. ODOT does bid these out competitively, I believe, on an annual basis. Historically, Public Works always purchased these dump trucks, these internationals, through the ODOT contract. One, for consistency, but another big reason is it's like a one-stop shop where we're actually able to build a truck as needed. Any type of dump truck you see used by cities or counties, they're all custom built, built to suit the needs of the individual entity. If we were to bid this out separately, we'd run into a few different challenges. We'd have not a lot of vendors build them, the two parts, the chassis and the body themselves. If we were to bid it out, we'd have two different vendors potentially. Logistics, if we had one vendor deliver one piece, we'd have to get that piece over to the other vendor to complete the transaction. We're also trying to strategize our fleet with the internationals. We've been using them historically to maintain that consistency through Rush. We've got the buying power with the consistency with the repairs. If we've got all the same vehicles in that fleet with that brand, we get buying power with our repairs down the road after the warranties are up. Procurement process, it is an exemption, but it was through the ODOT co-op. They did bid it out competitively. I know there's a question about this not being a sole source. You can there's other vendors that supply dump trucks. Many of them won't provide the chassis and the truck combined, but we're also, and the ones that do, as I said, we're trying to build that consistency in our fleet. ODOT has some of the largest buying power with different commodities, so if there's other cities and counties throughout Ohio, if they purchase off the exact same co-op contract, you're creating better leverage and buying power, so that's going to bring our price down. So if there's any other questions.
I just wanted to make a little comment. This is also for the award recommendation. I had previously stated just for the Rfp exemption.
Any questions? Okay. I'm sorry? Oh, okay.
Just curious, this is a 12-year-old replacement, so are we going to use the truck that we are replacing, or is that going to be sold? Or?
It's going to be auctioned off. It's beyond repair.
Beyond repair.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I move to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item's approved. Next item, please.
Next item is item number BC 2019-255, Department of Public Works, recommending an award on requisition 44314 to Liberty Ford, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $136,414.80 for the purchase of 4 new never titled 2020 all-wheel drive Ford Utility Police Interceptors.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Public Works. Recommending award Liberty Ford. It's for four Ford Police Interceptors. This was a formal bid. Went to 13 vendors. We did have 2 bids. The bid closed February 1st. They are replacements for high mileage vehicles. It'll be determined at the time of delivery what we'll do with those to replace. We've had the sheriff kind of change their mind last minute sometimes when we do replace their vehicles, so we're going to wait until we actually deliver them so we know what we're going to do with those. I know there was a question also on this one about trying to up the number of vendors to 6 to 10. So being honest, I'm fortunate we got 2 to 3 vendors on these next few ones. You know, we send these out to multiple vendors. This one went to 13 vendors. You know, these vendors that bid, they're not really making that much money. So when they go through a formal bid process, they have to fill out all the paperwork, submit a bid bond, and if they're only going to make $50 or $100 possibly, potentially, you know, a lot of vendors may not. I don't want to speak on behalf of the vendors, but that could be one of the reasons. I don't know if OPD submitted no bid sheets to the vendors, if they had any feedback on these.
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity, no additional feedback.
Okay.
Consistent with what has been the pattern.
Okay. So I know we had a vehicle that closed earlier this year. We had no bids, so we have to go back out to bid. So, you know, we always encourage as many vendors as possible. So what we can do is just continue to research more vendors, make sure they get a hold of the bid when we create our plan holders list.
Are there any questions? I move to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item's approved. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2019-256, Department of Public Works, recommending an award on requisition 44313, again to Liberty Ford, Inc., in the amount not to exceed $75,642 for the purchase of 4 new never titled 2019 Ford Fusion S or the equivalent.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Public Works again. This is another recommendation award to Liberty Ford. It's for 4 Ford Fusions, replacements for high mileage. This one's a 13 vendors. We have 3 bids on this one. One of them will be reassigned to trades. One of them will be a pool car. 2 of them will be auctioned off as a result.
Any questions? Councilman Miller?
Was the one you selected the lowest bid?
So this was a unique one, if one of you asked. So when the bids closed, there was a lower bidder. But that vendor actually did not put in a price for the multiple keys that were required as part of the bid package. The additional set of keys was an additional $2,400. The other, which still would have made them low. However, that particular vendor that was low bidder required a purchase order cut by February 15th, which was impossible. That increased each vehicle by an additional $660. So they were no longer the low bidder. After we added the $2,400 for the keys, the $660 per vehicle for the 4, they were actually a high bidder. So when it was said and done, we did go to a low bidder.
And how much higher was the other bidder?
So Liberty Ford was $75,642. Bob Gillingham was $76,166, and Valley Ford, who we had to make the adjustment to, is now at $77,010. So they're all within a close proximity. But Valley Ford was quite low, but they didn't bid correctly, and they required that purchase order, which increased the cost per vehicle.
Okay, right.
Any other questions? I move to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item is approved. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2019-257, Department of Public Works, recommending an award on requisition 44481 to LF Donnell, Inc., in the amount not to exceed $66,893 for the purchase of 2 2019 Ford F-250 Super Cab 4x4 pickup trucks.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Public Works. Recommendation award to LF Donnell. These are for 2 F-250s for our Road and Bridge Division. This was a formal bid, closed February 1st. We had 3 bids received, going with the lowest bidder. The 2 vehicles that will be replaced will be auctioned off. They're routed out.
Any questions?
Yes, go.
Just curious on the language, for the past 2, we have new, never titled, and then for this one, it's not said. Is there any reason why we don't say that?
Just an oversight.
So they're all new and never titled?
That's correct.
Thank you.
And How much higher were the other two bids?
So we go from 66,893 with Donnell. Liberty was 67,075. Valley 67,569.
Pretty close.
Very close. As I said earlier, these dealerships, they're not making that much money on these vehicles. They're really not. Some of them could be over aggressive in trying to get the fleet for the county, but we still bid everything competitively.
And you have 3 different winners on this series
Yep.
of bids.
It's good.
Yeah, that is good.
Any other questions? I move to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor? All those opposed? Any opposed? Item's approved.
Next item, BC 2019-258, Department of Public Works, recommending an award on requisition 44315 to Valley Ford Truck, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $26,528 for the purchase of one 2019 Ford F-250 regular cab 4x2 pickup truck or equivalent, newly minted and never titled.
Yes. Good morning, Tom Pavich, Public Works again. This is another recommendation award to Valley Ford. It's for a F-250 regular cab. I believe this is for weights and measures. This was a formal bid. Went to 13 vendors. We had 3 bid submissions. And the vehicle is actually on loan. So weights and measures, this is a new vehicle for them. They're actually borrowing a vehicle from our Road and Bridge division.
Any questions? I move to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item's approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2019-259, Department of Information Technology, submitting an amendment to a contract with Sivanco, Inc., doing business as AmericanEagle.com for implementation of the Sitefinity Web Content Case Management System for the period March 31st, 2017 through March 30th, 2019, to extend the time period to June 28th, 2019. No additional funds required.
Good morning, Janelle Green on behalf of the Department of IT. As Andrea stated, this is for the content management system that we're currently implementing on the county websites. This is for the web design, development, and consulting services relating to that project. This will be for the changes to the main websites as well as the HHS website pages. And we, again, are extending it until June 28th with no additional funds added to the contract.
Any questions?
Just curious as to why there's no extra charge.
We have some, with the last, the payments that we did, it was a prepayment. So we are anticipating that with what was prepaid, we will cover all of it, use all of those funds, and what is not used to get a refund of those.
Thank you. May I ask how much are we talking about that this additional till the end of June will cost us?
Let me pull it up 1 second, please.
Wonder what kind of money we're talking about that we had extra funds for.
Approximately $82,000.
And do you know how much is left?
That's what $82,000 is what's left.
What is needed for this particular implementation?
There's an association of hours, so it relates to how much time. I can't say specifically how much. There's an estimation of hours it will take, but it ran over already. So with this particular contract amendment, it is to capture for any anticipated overages and things like that. So we put the dollar amount of $82,350.
So up to, I guess.
Yes, up to that amount.
Thank you.
So, Councilwoman, just as an aside, I believe some of the $0 used to be on the consent agenda, and we discussed this in last week's review meeting, and OBM had recommended that they come on the regular voted agenda, just for the reasons that I think you're highlighting, that when we have extra dollars, we thought maybe it should be a discussion point, because the dollars, had we not, and it's not an issue with this contract in particular, but had the dollars just remained unspent, they could have gone back to the respective balances, and it's not a given that you get to spend dollars just because we perhaps underestimated or overestimated the cost of original contracts. So that's why you're seeing this now.
I am glad to see that because I think it does bring the accountability piece of knowing where those extra dollars are, what they are, and what they're being used for.
Understood.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Are there any other questions? I move to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Dever. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item is approved. Next item, please.
BC 2019-260, Department of Information Technology, submitting various amendments to a contract with Infor Public Sector, Inc. for information technology services and solutions for the Enterprise Resource Planning System, and it's for the period October 27, 2016 through October 26, 2021, to modify the scope of services. No additional funds required. Some of the modifications and effective dates are as follows. For amendment number 17, human resource data conversion range change, and it's effective on June 28, 2018. Amendment number 19, talent acquisition go live change, and it's effective on August 29, 2018. Amendment number 21, enterprise asset management wave 8 implementation schedule revision. It's effective on September 4th, 2018. Amendment number 24, adding workforce reports, interfaces, conversions, and extension items, which are reporting tools, effective April 1st, 2019. And amendment number 26, adding workforce management test environment, and it's effective on April 1st, 2019.
Janelle Green on behalf of the Department of IT. So the first three items that were mentioned, 17, 19, and 21, were items that had zero financial impact, meaning there was no dollar value associated to those items in terms of the Infor contract. The last two items, 24 and 26, as they were additions to this contract, they have a value. Number 24 has a value of $155,700, of which unallocated contract funds as well as repurposed budget was applied towards that. And then 26 had a value of $24,000, and all of the Phase 99 or unallocated funds were associated to that for the contract. There was a question in regards to the items 17, 19, and 21, why we're coming with these so late, because there was at a time there was the thoughts that items that didn't have had a $0 financial impact did not have to be presented. They were held, and so now that we have to present these to council, we are making sure that these were on this agenda.
Any questions?
Yes.
Councilman Miller?
Regarding the last two that have a dollar amount value, does this have the effect of reducing the contingency amount on the ERP contract, or is this money that was available within the existing amount on the Infor contract and does not require any use of the contingency?
This was already funds that were in the contract. This is not using those contingency funds.
Any other questions?
Good.
I move to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Dever. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Next item, item BC 2019-261, Department of Health and Human Services, Cuyahoga Job and Family Services, submitting an amendment to a contract with OPEX for licensing, support, and maintenance on a scanner for the period April 6, 2015 through April 5th, 2019, to extend the time period to April 5th, 2021, to expand the scope of services by adding the Office of Child Support Services Department, effective April 6, 2019, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $29,640.
I'm sorry, I guess I'll speak on behalf of this. This is for licensing for a scanner for the HHS department. It's for processing incoming mail. This particular amendment will also add on child support to allow them to use those services as well.
Any questions?
Originally ended April of this year, extended to 2 more years. Was there a reason why the Child and Family Services wasn't included for those years that we've had this under contract?
It was something that always that department had. And so just looking at the influx of mail, just with processing, child support felt that they needed to have something in place too. And we're utilizing the services that was already there just because it was a known solution and just adding on to that contract.
If I may, so the 29,000 will cover us for the next, looks like 2 years?
Correct.
It's a 2-year contract?
Correct. So it was $2,700 to add on the particular module for child support, and then the other parts were the maintenance and the support to go on. And it's like an increase of about $400 every year, which is, standard increase.
So to add the Child and Family Services, $2,700 was the
Correct.
additional amount to add them for 2 years?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I move to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Next item, BC 2019-262, Sheriff's Department submitting various revenue-generating agreements with the City of Cleveland in the total amount not to exceed $68,000 for inmate housing services for various law enforcement agencies operating within the City of Cleveland. A, in the amount not to exceed $18,000, and it's for the period August 1st, 2018 through November 30th, 2018, and B, in the amount not to exceed $50,000 for the period December 1st, 2018 through November 30th, 2019 for the following, entities: Cleveland Clinic Foundation, Cleveland Municipal School District, Case Western Reserve University, University Hospitals, Cleveland State University, Cuyahoga Metropolitan Housing Authority, Cuyahoga Community College, University Circle Incorporated, and Metro Health System.
Lauren Harwell here on behalf of the Sheriff's Department. Oh, I did receive the questions. You want me to go ahead and answer? Okay, so first question was, why are these being submitted so long after the effective dates of the proposed changes? I received a timeline this morning from Donna Khalil, and you guys are more than welcome to have it, but she pretty much laid out when she received the item and how long, date by date, it took to get approved. I personally received it in October of last year and started that process, and then our law department and the city's law department were kind of working things out because they wanted to make a lot of changes to it. The biggest change was originally it was just one contract to cover from August until November 30th of 2019, and I guess, I'm not sure if it was, I believe it was Cleveland decided they wanted to do 2 separate contracts. So that was a huge delay in it. There was several times that it was sent to on-base for approval once the law department approved it, and it kept getting rejected for various reasons. So it kind of took us into the final, I guess, submittal being March 14th.
Any questions?
Just a quick question. Do you know, does this contract include an average daily rate per prisoner?
Yes.
What is that?
$99.
It is, okay, still, thank you.
Yep. And that was your second question, was what was the per day, per inmate amount that they're paying, which is $99. It's listed in the contract. The third question was how many inmates per agency is expected on a regular basis. It's very minimal. I would guesstimate around 50 a month, but that's combined with all the agencies, not, just one particular one. And then on average, I was told, like, out of that number, the 225 of our daily count, that includes Cleveland and all the agencies combined. So it's not many that we receive.
Any other questions?
Understanding the delay of the reasons why, this is going to be ending November 30th of this year. Do you anticipate that we now can ask for this request if it continues before the deadlines, before the ask is passed?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I move to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-263, Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services, submitting an amendment to a contract with the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland for juvenile educational legal services, and it's for the period November 1st, 2014 through October 31st, 2019, for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $32,000.
Good morning, Bob Math from the Department of Health and Human Services on behalf of DCFS. DCFS currently has a contract with Legal Aid Society that goes through October 31st of 2019. Unfortunately, given the increase in kids that have come into custody during this past year and a half, there's been an increased demand for services to represent kids that are experiencing difficulty in the educational system. Primarily, the Legal Aid Society provides includes legal advice and direct representation, where they have obtained or modified special education services and prevented expulsions, and to ensure appropriate school placements. Again, the increase in just January, February alone, the question was, is there demand for increase in our additional dollars? So we're hoping that these additional dollars will suffice based upon the increased demand for legal services between now and the end of the contract. Then just recently, just as of this past Friday, we were informed that the law department is now going to assign one of our in-house attorneys to handle all these cases going forward. So we'll have legal aid. We'll continue to provide services for those kids that are in the queue of, if you will, and are being referred. Then going forward, our law department, I'm told, will handle those cases. So this contract, it'll end on October 31st.
Any questions?
So there'll be a person in the law department representing the family, is that correct?
The child.
The child, okay.
The child in custody. So I'm told that on Friday.
Okay. It's an interesting idea. I kind of like the concept, but is there any issues with us representing the child when there are times potentially that it may be in conflict with the agency?
No, this is for representing them at school.
Oh, it's
and they are on record,
our
ours.
kids. I gotcha.
Only
Okay,
for
I
issues that
understand.
surface regarding their educational plan.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
So I have a question. I don't know if you can answer this, but is this, or maybe you can answer this, Lisa. Is this the new position that's being added to the law department that's specifically going to work in HHS?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. I don't know, but I can find out for
Okay.
you.
I was told, that's what I was told, the person that just came on is going to be handling this.
Okay. Thank you.
Why are we discontinuing doing this through the Legal Aid Society?
Well, we were told, and Councilman Miller, that they wanted to handle it in-house, by one of our own attorneys. That was just brought to my attention on Friday.
I know that the law department has a huge amount to do, and I'm not sure of the wisdom of adding to their responsibilities.
No, I agree. I know this attorney they just brought on this very recently. I was told on Friday that was going to be one of her assignments to handle these cases.
And do we think that by bringing it in-house that we're going to save money?
Well, will we save money? Right now, probably not in the grand scheme of things. Legal aid charges $75 an hour, which is in today's world is a pretty inexpensive rate for legal services.
This might be one of those wait and see, I think, because a lot of the services have to be provided in the schools, so just travel time alone, we might find that it's not in our best interest. But any other questions?
Just to understand, that transition will not take place until October 29th, till end of October this year, that we're planning on outsourcing?
Councilman Baker, it could occur sooner. I mean, when we exhaust the dollars in the contract based upon, the children that they're currently working with, that it's conceivable the attorney could pick those cases up prior to October 31st,
But the intent is that we will use these dollars until they're exhausted.
And also, there's a correction in the funding stream. It's 70% Health and Human Services levy and then 30% Title IV-E.
Thank you.
Correct that.
Go ahead.
Just to follow up, you indicated that you were informed Friday that this is happening. Was the person interviewed, like, was the posting specific to this service, or they just found somebody in the law department that was recently hired that they're going to give this job to?
Mr. Knott, I have no clue.
I can halfway answer that question. So the posting was specific to children and family issues. So this person was hired specifically to work in the Department of, so do you remember the name? You remember Steve Ritz?
Yes, yes.
So it's effectively
That
him.
job.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's an attorney who's working in the department to help the agency specifically.
Yeah,
but
I understand that this attorney will spend 4 days a week at Jane Edna Hunter.
All right. Now that you said Ritz, I think I understand it better. Thank you.
Any other questions? I move to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Dever. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Items approved.
Next item, BC 2019-264, Department of Sustainability, recommending to amend Board Approval Number BC 2019-243, dated March 25th, 2019, which conditionally approved an award on requisition 44908 and contract with Solar United Neighbors Corporation as a sole source in the amount not to exceed $25,000 for implementation and coordination of 2 solar co-ops to provide solar energy outreach and training services to residents of Cuyahoga County, and it was for the period March 25th, 2019 through March 31st, 2020. We are now deleting the sole source language and adding an RFP exemption as the procurement process. So I will read into the record the RFP exemption. A, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 44908, which will result in an award recommendation to Solar United Neighbors Corporation in the amount not to exceed $25,000 for implementation and coordination of 2 solar co-ops to provide solar energy outreach and training services to residents of Cuyahoga County for the period March 25th, 2019 through March 31st, 2020.
Mike Foley from the Department of Sustainability. We were here last week to present the item. It was approved contingent upon the sole source language. We got the sole source affidavit signed, but then we kind of came back and discussed it. This should be an RFP exemption, so we're back today in front as an RFP exemption.
Any questions?
Why was it decided it should be an RFP exemption and not a sole source?
Councilman, from our perspective, we brought this contract 3 times now with Solar United. They do a really great job of informing people on kind of rooftop solar and organizing these co-ops. It's just the way we've done it in the past as a RFP exemption. When we put the language in to on-base the system, I think we said these are the only guys that can do this, and so Trevor suggested, well, maybe this is a sole source contract. It should be. But the legalities of whether it should be sole source or RFP kind of went to a higher pay grade and said we should make this as an RFP exemption.
Lenore Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. The item was presented last week as an RFP exemption because that is the criteria that was met by the transaction that was presented to this board for approval. Receiving an affidavit signed after the fact does not comply with the county code requirements for a sole source.
Is there an opinion as to if there's another round of this contract, should we do it as a sole source or should we do it as an RFP exemption?
Councilman, I'll ask our OBM or procurement at that point. I'm not the expert in determining which one we should be using, so talk to law, talk to procurement at that point. But maybe we do it as a sole source at that time.
Lenore Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. As a director at the Office of Procurement and Diversity, we always prefer for more formal, full, and open competition procurement methods. If that is not the case, then we'll look at the other opportunities at that time.
Okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm understanding, sole source means that no one else, right, can compete. It's a unique product or service, and the only way we could go sole source is if we can show that no one else can provide it. Is that the case in this matter? I know we like the people that are chosen, but is Solar United Neighbors Corporation the only choice out there?
Councilwoman, as far as I know, they are. I mean, they're pretty unique. They do this nationally in about 15 states, and they've done this in maybe 10 to 15 counties throughout Ohio. No one else, you know, I'm in this kind of universe. I don't know of anyone else who does this work. And they're really good. They do great information presentations. They put the RFP package together that the co-op members basically choose vendors for or winners on. They've got the list of all the vendors throughout the country, and you know, they'll kind of whittle it down to just Midwest potential vendors to bid on the contract. So I don't know of anyone else who does this.
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. The criteria for a sole source purchase from a government entity is that the vendor has to certify that they are the only vendor that can provide the goods or services that we need.
Okay.
Plus, there also has to be a determination by the user department or the county that states that that is the only item that can meet the government's needs. So, for example, McDonald's is the only one that makes a Big Mac.
Right.
However, that is not the only hamburger you can eat, so it must meet both criteria. Not just that McDonald's is the only one that can make the Big Mac, but the user department that is proposing a purchase must state why the Big Mac is the only hamburger that we can eat. So in this case, our process requires statements that the vendor is the only one that can provide the goods, and you also have to provide a statement as to why this is the only item that can be used to meet the needs of that entity. Then we post it for 5 days to make sure that vendors or other entities in the market do not contradict those statements.
I guess I would suggest that we do that next time, that if we're going to go, if it is the only source out there, that we go through that process and make sure that after 5 days, no one else jumps on board, and that we are correct in our assumption that these are the only people out there that could provide it. Is that
correct? That was, if the item had met those criteria, the caption would have stated it was a sole source.
okay?
The item was presented as an RFP exemption. A briefing is what is determined and prepared by the department that provides their perspective on why they're recommending a transaction. However, the caption is our department's proposal that's approved at the agenda review meeting as to the transaction that meets the requirements for the county.
It's sounding like in theory this might meet the test for a sole source and might be the way to go in the future, but that it's kind of difficult to change it from a RFP exemption to a sole source after the fact. And so on that basis, I'm going to move for approval on the item.
Seconded by Mr. Dever. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Items approved. Next item, please.
Next item, item number BC 2019-265. It's a two-part item. Department of Sustainability. A, submitting an RP exemption, which will result in a payment to Cleveland 2030 District in the amount of $5,000 for operational support to promote energy efficiency and conservation for the period June 12, 2019 through May 31st, 2020. And B, recommending a payment in connection with said RFP exemption.
Mike Foley from the Department of Sustainability. The 2030 District is a local nonprofit that works with commercial building owners and contractors on energy efficiency projects in downtown and University Circle districts, and so they do a great job. This is just to help them with operational support for the year.
Any questions? Okay.
It's noted as a general fund. Is there a reason why it's not coming out of the sustainability account?
It is coming out of our fund.
Under the okay.
They are a general fund entity.
Okay.
Mhm.
So the difference from the one above it, is that the same, or the one for sustainability projects fund?
No, so that's a separate fund that establishes for sustainability projects. Department of Sustainability, we also have our own fund basically, and we've got a little bit of money for contracts such as this.
This one's coming out of their operating budget, which is a general fund budget.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? I move to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Dever. All those in favor? Aye. Items approved.
Next item, BC 2019-266, County Council. It's a two-part item. A, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in a payment to Milestones Autism Resources in the amount of $50,000 for operational support of the Help Desk Capacity Building Initiative for the period April 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019. And B, recommending the payment in connection with said RFP exemption.
Joe Nani, County Council. This item and the next item were both approved by County Council in the 2018-2019 budget. The Milestones item provides services to families and children with autism in trying to navigate services available to both the individual, the child, as well as the family.
Any questions? I move to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item's approved.
Next item, BC 2019-267, again is a two-part item. County Council, A, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in a payment to Spanish American Committee for a Better Community in the amount of $50,000 for wraparound services for displaced individuals relocating to Cuyahoga County. And it's for the period April 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019. And B, recommending a payment in connection with said RFP exemption.
Joe Nani again from County Council. Again, this item was approved in the 2018-2019 budget by Council. It helps with a bilingual social worker. The agency, this is the second year that we're providing this. The inception of this request came from the response that the agency was seeing, or the needs that the agency was seeing relative to Hurricane Maria. They're still seeing some of the folks coming through that need access to individuals with bilingual as well as knowledge of local services available.
Any questions? I have a question, Joe. Do you anticipate that this will be done again next year?
I don't believe so, but it's up to council ultimately. Okay. I don't know for both of those items. It's going to have to be rediscussed again.
I move to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item, please.
Moving on to exemptions, item BC 2019-268, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 43107, which will result in an award recommendation to Motorola Solutions, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $844,399 for the replacement and new installation of 21 surveillance cameras and mounting hardware for the Cleveland Shared Surveillance Camera Project and Video Management System in connection with the fiscal year 2016 and 2017 Urban Area Security Initiative grant programs.
Good morning, Mary Beth Fawn from Public Safety, and as Andreas explained, this is for 21 surveillance cameras. It's actually replacing 12 existing cameras the City of Cleveland has and 9 new cameras, as well as a video management system for the City of Cleveland, and this is being paid for over 2 Homeland Security grants. This project was actually formerly RFP. The RFP closed back on November 30th. We received 4 bids ranging from $599,000 to $1.4 million. The proposals were reviewed, and at that time the recommendation was made to bring in the top 3 vendors, and then those proposals and those vendor demonstrations were reviewed. At that point in time, there became apparent there were some weaknesses in some of the proposals, and the recommendation was that we go with Motorola. One of the reasons for Motorola is that the bid specs call for a wireless point-to-point or multi-point link to the tower sites. Motorola offered a point-to-point, multi-point, and back-to-fiber hardwiring, which is a superior way of connecting these cameras. It has better connectivity, and it's a more reliable system. Both Celoplan and Paladin, who were the other 2 vendors that were brought in, only quoted totally wireless connections. Also, during the demonstration, it was identified that Celoplan had an incorrect network design that would have required additional networking. That additional networking was not included in their pricing. And Paladin's design only included fixed cameras, and the RFP specifically had asked for pan-tilt zoom cameras. This procurement has been reviewed by Ohio EMA, and they have approved the award to Motorola.
Any questions? I move to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Dever. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Items approved.
Thank you.
Moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any questions about these items?
I would like to, if I could, at this time, we have an additional item that needs to be included into the additional food purchases for the Sheriff's County Jail. So we would have to
Okay.
amend the agenda.
I make a motion to amend the agenda to include this item. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is amended.
Nora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. We appreciate the consideration to add these items to the agenda. This was an oversight on our part. The items did make the deadline to be included in the draft agenda. However, they were not included on our draft agenda to be presented to the county executive for presentation on the final draft. These items are needed by the juvenile court for the food services to the for the detention center.
Any questions? I move to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Dever. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Items approved.
There's no other business at this time.
Moving on to the consent agenda. Items 269 to 272. Are there any questions about these items? I make a motion to approve the consent agenda items. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Other business?
Other business and no public comment.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Dever. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.